We are live here inside the Substack app. Thank you so much for hanging out as always, everyone. It's a pleasure to just ding record, hang out, hear your thoughts, your questions, and just have a conversation wherever, however, you're absorbing our content here at golongtd.com. So thanks so much for hanging out, everybody. It's an honor, a pleasure, as always, to have you. We're completely independent, fueled by you. I can't say it enough. We launched in November of 2020, and so we're going into the 2025 season stronger than ever. It's all thanks to you and your willingness to hit pause on life. That's no easy thing. I always tell people, like, yeah, you want to try to get somebody to bust out a credit card, punch in those digits, and subscribe. But the bigger commitment is to hit pause on life and read, a three-part series on Julian Hill, a backup tight end for the Miami Dolphins, who's been through hell and back. So it's a commitment on your part. Just wanted to extend our gratitude here at Go Long. The whole family is very excited. We've got baby number 3 on the way too. We're on the countdown, about 3.5, 4 weeks away. So closing in fast. I'm open to any and all parenting, fatherhood advice for those of you who have 3+ children. I know we're entering a different realm of chaos with 3 kids under 5, but cannot wait. Cannot wait. Also, we're moving down to the southern tier here in Western New York, building a house in the greater Elegantville, Great Valley area, which is where I grew up. So always got to give a shout out to everybody down there in the southern tier. All right, let's talk. So live at the site right now, I've got a column on Brandon Beane and the Buffalo Bills, where things are going into year number 9 of this regime. And this isn't anything new, right? Like, they've tried to build defensively, beef up the D line. You can go all the way back to what, Trent Murphy and Star Lodulele, and right down the list. Mario Addison, drafting Gregory Rousseau, Boogie Basham, paying Von Miller a hell of a lot of money, which I don't think it's necessarily too political. When Brandon Beane says, hey, things were looking pretty good there before that torn ACL, Von Miller was surprised to me how much juice he had in his legs before he tears his knee, returns too soon, is never really the player they envisioned. But hey, you just sign an older player. That fear should be there. Anyways, yeah, it's nothing new. But this offseason, clearly, Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott decided the best way to maximize this Super Bowl window with a future Hall of Fame quarterback in Josh Allen, MVP quarterback in Josh Allen, is to load up on defense. And that has been a lively debate, a lively discussion amongst all of us the last 3 months, for good reason. I mean, hell, I wrote a column ahead of the draft advocating for the drafting of a wide receiver, right? Like, you don't know if you're going to get those stops in January. You haven't. Patrick Mahomes has been just an absolute cyborg against your defense. So why would you expect anything to be different, regardless of who's out there? Load up on offense, try to win 48-35. I know nobody here in Western New York likes to hear these numbers, but yes, in 4 playoff games, here's Mahomes' numbers against the Buffalo Bills. He's completed 74% of his passes for 1,163 yards, thrown 9 touchdowns, 0 picks, a 123.7 rating. He's also added 136 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. And this is through, right, like the loaded offense of Tyreek Hill and Kelsey in their prime, to trading Tyreek Hill, through the erosion of Travis Kelsey, through an offensive line being hot garbage at times, a receiving core being hot garbage at times. Like, they've gone through their own offensive malaise, and it hasn't really mattered against the Bills. So that is the backdrop. What do the Bills do? Well, they load up on the D line. I sat down with Brandon Beane for a one-on-one a few weeks back. Hopefully, you've had a chance to read that. Try to ask him some difficult questions, and he responded in candor, as he always does. Like it, love it, hate it. This is the plan. They believe you've got to cycle in different D linemen. You've got to win on the line of scrimmage with your defense, win on the line of scrimmage with your offense. I think the thinking is, if you can just dominate in the trenches and create this calm world for Josh Allen, He is just gonna figure shit out. And yeah, you want to have good receivers, you want to have good running backs, you want to have good skill position players, but you draft that quarterback, you nail that position, you give him that time, and he's going to have an MVP season. The first offense ever to run for 30 touchdowns, throw for 30 touchdowns. They scored 30 plus points in 8 straight games. Yeah, Mac Hollins led your team in receiving in the AFC Championship game. No, that is not ideal, but things were pretty damn good on offense for the Buffalo Bills last year. And it's the same thinking on the other end defensively. Own the line of scrimmage. Hopefully, you get pressure without blitzing. Like the dream scenario is what Vic Fangio and the Philadelphia Eagles just did in Super Bowl LIX, which I don't know why we didn't call it Super Bowl Licks more often. Yeah, it does kind of sound strange. 16 pressures, 6 sacks, and by the time Patrick Mahomes crossed midfield, they were down 34-0. This was, as I wrote today, just a 90s slasher film. It was grisly. It was grotesque. You got Jalen Carter slapping Mahomes across the head, and the Chiefs had no answer. You could tell right away. I remember sitting there in our auxiliary seating in New Orleans watching this game from above and just seeing the coverage. Like, nobody's open. Nobody's open. And Patrick Mahomes is running for his life. That's a brutal combination. Tampa Bay had the same formula 4 years prior in the Super Bowl when Patrick Mahomes is running around for 497 yards before sacks, before throwing the ball. It's just crazy to see what he did against the Bills 4 times in the playoffs, and then see what happens against the Eagles, against the Bucks. So that's what Brandon Beane and the Bills are trying to create. So here's the question. I'll pose it to you and let me know what you think. What is the best way to take advantage of a star quarterback voted the best player, most valuable player in the sport? Is it to draft wide receivers nonstop? Hell, they've taken one wide receiver in the top 100 in 8 drafts. They've taken 8 or 9 defensive linemen. Is it that you just constantly fuel and refuel and give him this receiver and this tight end? And hey, they did draft a tight end and a wide receiver with their top pick back-to-back years. But by and large, they have not done that. They've gone the veteran route, trades, signing guys. Is that the best way, or is it to relentlessly chase what Philadelphia just did against Patrick Mahomes? Tampa Bay 4 years prior. You can take it all the way back to the Giants twice against Tom Brady, right? An undefeated season. They spoil it. They ruin it. Brady, they scored 14 points. They couldn't do much offensively after torching the entire NFL because it's not rocket science. The Giants got pressure with their front four. They didn't have to blitz, and they had DBs on the back end trying to cover. I mean, what Denver? The 2013 Denver Broncos scored the most points in NFL history. I remember thinking they were just going to light up Seattle there at MetLife Stadium. That offense, not totally forgotten, but we do kind of forget how good, how elite Peyton Manning was that season with Denver. And they just were terrible against the Legion of Boom in the Super Bowl. They couldn't do anything because Seattle had a formula defensively. So should the Bills just abandon ship and trying to build a defense in that vein, try to win shootouts, or do you keep banging at the door, trying to find a combination that works? So I admittedly, early in the offseason, after hearing the GM and the head coach speak separately, they do separate press conferences after the year. I know a lot of teams do them together. I think the Bills used to do them together. You hear both of them again emphasize they need to win at the line of scrimmage. This is what they believe in, and it's not a cliche, right? It's not propaganda. This is how they think you have to win. Get the quarterback, build an offensive line. They've done that. Build a defensive line, and you're going to be in the Super Bowl. You're going to win that Super Bowl. Admittedly, I thought, you know what? If you're retaining the coaching staff top down by and large, and they made some tweaks as they should, which I think are good. I think they added some really good assistant coaches. But unless you're going to change the topic completely, evolve on the fly with this MVP quarterback, well, that's another discussion for another hour at another time if this thing continues. We've had that discussion before. Short of that, I do think now that the dust is settled and we've seen who the Bills have signed, we've seen who the Bills have drafted, I'm all in. I really think that this is the best course of action for the Bills. We'll see how it plays out. Right? You draft defensive players with your top 5 picks on the heels of Joey Bosa, Larry Ogunjobi, Michael Hoyt. It's got to work. It's got to be different. I mean, this is Brandon Beane just saying, here's your menu of options, Sean. You've got 8 D linemen that you can roll through, keep legs fresh, and you need TJ Sanders, a player who I heard the Packers and maybe others would have taken if the Bills didn't trade up to get him. You need that player to win one-on-one. Because that Oliver's going to get that double team. You need a rookie to win that. Former high school basketball player who's very athletic. You need Maxwell Hairston, fastest player at the NFL Combine. It's not just track speed. You put on the tape, it's football speed. You need him to stick with those receivers on crossing routes. He's going to lose some jump balls. He's going to get out muscled. He's not a big dude, but he is a willing tackler. But size wise, he's not exactly going to be cut from the cloth of corners Sean McDermott is used to back to his days with Jim Johnson in Philadelphia. This isn't Lito Shepherd, right? Like this is a different kind of corner. But I think you need that. It's different. You had to evolve. You had to think differently outside of the box. He can maybe stick with that receiver long enough, right? It works in hand in hand. Win your one-on-one up front, get in Patrick Mahomes' face, Joe Burrow's face, Lamar Jackson, whoever it is. And then on the back end, there's nobody open. I think that this was the best call. And it's not just from what we see, and we'll let it play out, right? I mean, gosh, Luther Burden III, newest Chicago Bear, just put the whole NFL on notice that everybody who passed on him is going to regret it. If this mercurial wide receiver who had his issues those other 6 days of the week in college, those scouts told Bob McGinn, they were honest. This dude, you don't know what you're getting between game days, but on game day, he is a chess piece that could blow up in a Ben Johnson offense. You might regret it. Hindsight might be cruel. But this is how you think you've got to win right now. This is your philosophy. I like I like trying to create that type of world because we have seen it work. And I think we can go through all the direct examples of Super Bowl champions like I just did. I think it's almost more instructive to look back at some Hall of Fame quarterbacks because to this point, Josh Allen's had to be perfect for the Bills to get to the Super Bowl. And often he is a notch or 2 or 3 below perfect. He's what? 50% Superman, 50% Clark Kent. You still were able to go to Arrowhead, by the way, in the AFC Championship game and put up 29 points, 22 first downs, 374 yards with 0 turnovers. Like that should be enough. That's why I was taken aback by Sean McDermott. The very first comments at his season-ending press conference, surprised that it was focused on that last drive. Yes, the 4th and 5 heave from Allen to Dalton Kincaid fell just short. Offense is not the reason the Bills are losing these playoff games. It's a defense that transforms into a sieve. I mean, they're good enough to beat the Chiefs in 4 regular season games. Something happens in the playoffs. Is it coaching? You be the judge of that. So, anyways, Allen shouldn't have to be perfect. So I went back and because he just turned 29 years old today, Josh Allen. You know, he's still in his prime, clearly. How long can he play this way? Running, throwing, leaping, stiff arming, all that stuff. I don't know, mid-30s. So you still have a 4, 5, 6 year window, generously speaking of him at his physical athletic peak. I think that Brandon Beane is more terrified of the Josh Allen era, this golden age of Bills football, going the way of Dan Marino, Dan Fouts, Warren Moon, just to pull a few Hall of Famers at the top of mind. Very talented quarterbacks, Canton-bound quarterbacks who just had bad defenses that didn't have their back in the playoffs, right? Fouts, Eric Coryell, Kellen Winslow, those teams revolutionized the sport, but there wasn't the substance there. There wasn't the defense there to get it done long term. Dan Marino, hell, mentioned it a few times, but what an honor to kind of join Jarrett Bailey's quarterback panel. I think it's coming out next month. Had a bunch of us writers rank our top 30 of the Super Bowl era. and kind of compile it to get some type of ranking. I know it's going to be ranking season then, and I'm anti-ranking season, but it was fun. I'll admit it. I had Dan Marino very, very high because you look back at what he was able to do in that era. It was so different, cutting edge, the quick release, airing it out. I mean, it was just transformative the way he played the position. And what a shame because they never had a defense. He couldn't be less than perfect for Miami to get the job done, to get to a Super Bowl and win it. Warren Moon, same thing. Run and shoot, evolution in its own right. They're up 35-3 at Rich Stadium, and they collapse. I think that the fear for Brandon Beane. This is me talking, not the GM, but read the one-on-one, the back and forth, and you may draw the same conclusion. He's not going to look back and think, "Oh shit, I wish I would have taken 3, 4, 5 more wide receivers for Josh." I think the greater fear is I had Josh Allen, nailed that pick, and we weren't able to give him a defense. So if he has not even an off day, if he's somewhat human at times, like he was in the 2024 AFC Championship game, right? He comes out like Brett Favre. You might get a throw in the 14th row. He was a little jumpy, but he settled in. Played really damn well on the road at a championship game. If you have that kind of game, the defense can lift him up. And let's look back at some other Hall of Fame quarterbacks, right? Who got it done, right? Who got it done in the era of Tom Brady, in the era of Patrick Mahomes. No easy feat to win a Super Bowl with these two goats goating around. Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers. All right, they all won Super Bowls. Manning twice, Brees once, Rodgers once. They didn't have to be perfect. They made mistakes, but guess what? They had some help. Start with Peyton Manning. We all know 2015 was all about Denver's defense. You've got Von Miller, DeMarcus Ware screaming off the edge, Hall of Famers, Aqib Talib, Chris Harris Jr. I mean, that defense was nasty. I remember covering that Super Bowl at the Buffalo News at the time and sitting down with Wade Phillips and hearing how that thing came together. I should have been listening more closely because, man, they took an MVP quarterback in Cam Newton and ate him up. They carried Peyton Manning on his back. So we're not even looking at that run where Peyton Manning is a shell of himself. Go to 2006 when he finally got over the hump with the Indianapolis Colts. We think of Peyton Manning as this statistical juggernaut anomaly, all the audibles at the line of scrimmage, throwing it all over the place. When he won it all in 2006, he wasn't at the top of his game. They beat the Chiefs in the wild card, I believe. The divisional round doesn't even lead a touchdown drive. It's a bunch of field goals in M&T Stadium against the Baltimore Ravens. Steve McNair is their quarterback. Jamal Lewis is the running back. Rex Ryan's the defensive coordinator. It was, vintage, quintessential, old school Ravens football. And Manning was not very good in that game. He threw as many incomplete passes as he did completed passes, 15. Threw 2 interceptions. Had a 39.6 rating. I can still remember talking to Dallas Clark about that game, and it was like, oh, God, we were terrible. They couldn't do much. The best play on offense was a 3rd down conversion where Manning hit Clark at the end of the 4th quarter, allowed them to kick that extra field to go up by 2 scores and win, I believe, 15-6. That was the one highlight offensively. That's it. That was it. They win, all right? You get to the AFC Championship game and you host it because the San Diego Chargers just absolutely choke away a game against New England. Remember that? Can't remember the player for the Chargers picked it off, then fumbled, and Brady did Brady things. So you host that game. You throw a pick 6 against a Tom Brady Patriots team. Manning's numbers ended up being pretty good, but ingesting rat poison. You don't win that game against Tom Brady when you throw a pick 6. So Manning even made a mistake in that game. And Marlon Jackson seals it with an interception. So the defense, again, they have the Colts back to a degree. And then in the Super Bowl, it was a rain-soaked monsoon down there in South Florida against Rex Grossman and the Bears. And the Colts and the rain forced 5 Bears turnovers. Manning's a Super Bowl MVP, played well, but it was not a thing of beauty. in those conditions, and he's Super Bowl champ. So, all right, there's Peyton Manning. Let's go to Drew Brees. 2009. Our pal Jim Monos is a Southeast scout for the Saints on that run. I was just talking to Jim. He's doing great. GM of the UFL Memphis Showboats. We're going to get Jim back here in Western New York, pick up the podcast. Can't wait to get his UFL stories, by the way. But we were just talking about that '09 Saints team. I rewatched that Super Bowl. You know, it's funny, like through time, I was in college at the time at Syracuse covering the Syracuse basketball team. And that night, I believe I was covering a Syracuse Cincinnati game for the Daily Orange in Cincinnati. I didn't even watch the Super Bowl live. And then I caught, snippets and highlights after the fact. This week is the first time I actually went back and watched that Indianapolis Colts, New Orleans Saints 2009 Super Bowl in full. And yeah, let's go to that run. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. So Brees, through that playoff run, 732 yards, 8 touchdowns, no picks. Statistically, you'd say, oh man, he was just about perfect. But in that NFC Championship game against the Vikings, it was ugly at times. You watch, let's start there. I mean, they were very fortunate to win that game when you've got Adrian Peterson fumbling it multiple times. Oh my gosh, they forced 5 turnovers in all that game. And that was Bountygate. You needed a little Greg Williams help. I've never seen a quarterback just completely pulverized like Brett Favre was for the Vikings in that NFC Championship game. I'm sure a lot of viewers would agree. He was high load throughout. It was brutal. So you kind of need a little boost there. And then onto that Super Bowl, yes, Brees was very good. Brees alone could not do it all. He needed the surprise onside kick from Sean Payton. He needed a linebacker in Jonathan Vilma covering a wide receiver in Austin Collie on 3rd and 11 up the seam, breaking up a pass, followed by a missed field goal in that second half. And then he needed a 74-yard pick six from Tracy Porter when Peyton Manning's going down at the end of the game. That Saints defense had 47 takeaways. So that's what Greg Williams relied on, taking the ball away, just absolute chaos on the back end, creating havoc, creating turnovers. So, right, statistically, it looks like Brees was amazing. Even he needed some help. Even he needed some breaks to go his way to get his lone Super Bowl, a Hall of Fame quarterback who, when he retired, had all the records. Aaron Rodgers. I know we speak of Aaron Rodgers in a somewhat negative light from time to time to bring you the truth on what happens behind the scenes with this sport. Aaron Rodgers in 2010 was spectacular. I was just in Atlanta working on some Falcons stuff, and there are some people in the Falcons who still can vividly remember that divisional playoff game against Green Bay. And it's like, it left scars. Rodgers was 31-36, absolute clinic against the number 1 seeded Falcons. That game, Tramon Williams had a pick six that game. Sublime, one of the best performances by a quarterback we'll ever see. Before that, the wild card game requires Tramon Williams intercepting Michael Vick, covering Riley Cooper in the end zone. After that game, Caleb Haney gives him hell when Jay Cutler's in the parka on the sideline with the MCL not playing football. You needed Dom Capers dialing up the perfect play for the perfect moment. BJ Raji dropping into coverage, pick six, NFC Championship game, Soldier Field ball game. You're into the Super Bowl. Let's go to that Super Bowl. All right. Aaron Rodgers, statistically stupendous, incredible, put up great numbers. Guess what? He had a lot of drops by his receivers in that game. We can absolutely zero in and cherry pick moments for the Bills where these receivers have let them down. And we do that in the story today. Start with Duke Williams in 2019 wild card. Insane throw by Allen. That's the moment we all should have known this guy's going to be a superstar. To Duke freaking Williams in the end zone, end of the first half. On his hands, drops it. Different game if he catches that touchdown. 2020 AFC Championship game, Devin Singletary, swing pass. Goes through his hands. I know that game was a blowout against the Chiefs, but if Devin Singletary catches that ball and makes Tyrann Mathieu miss, go back and check it out. I've talked to Motor about this for a feature. He's gone. And the Bills would have been up 16-7 at that point. Maybe it's a different game. Instead, they punt. Instead, they settle for chip shot field goals. Instead, the Chiefs win a blowout. They run away. 2021, yeah, the Bills were perfect. What can you say? Patriots wild card, Chiefs divisional round. They were offensively, they were perfect. We're going to look back and wonder how in the hell that offense, that team didn't win the Super Bowl. It's a crime, honestly. 2022, 3rd and 2, down 24-10. Allen chucks a deep 45-yard bomb to Gabe Davis. He can't muscle it away from Cam Taylor, Brett. You see Davis just spiked the ball in frustration. Next play, they concede defeat with a 4th and 2 punt. Still don't understand why you just give up and get 2 yards. At least give yourself a chance. So yes, there was a play. And then 2023, the bomb to Stephon Diggs with 8 minutes left. 2 really bad drops by Trent Sherfield in that game as well. 2024, 4th and 5, ended the game. Dalton Kincaid, right, the pressure that the Bills never anticipated. Spags brings the heat. Allen rolls to the right, somehow gets rid of the ball. It's insane that this even had a shot. Kincaid, it's not easy. That's not an easy play for Dalton Kincaid. Stops on a dime, dives the other direction, falls short. We can absolutely pinpoint all of these plays. We can do it. Look at them all. Magnify them. Let's look at that Packers Super Bowl. Awful drops. James Jones. I know we've got some Packer fans listening and watching. That 75-yard touch, I mean, it was put it right on his hands, like a slant. If he takes that in stride, he's gone. Palomalu's not catching him. He's gone. Drop stab, but he wasn't alone. There were 5 drops in all in that game, in that Super Bowl, where Aaron Rodgers threw for 300 yards, a few touchdowns. He was great. If these players catch these very catchable balls, and if you adjust for 3 throwaways, I believe, Aaron Rodgers would have had 451 yards, 5 touchdowns, and a perfect 158.3 rating. But they had the 5. I mean, they should have won that Super Bowl running away against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Those drops kind of made it a game late into the 4th quarter. So they had drops, but nobody remembers them. You know why? Because the defense stepped up. The defense made plays in the Super Bowl down there in North Texas against the Steelers. Go through a few of them. Howard Green, big old Howard Green. Man, was he fun to cover my first year at the Journal Sentinel. Can remember talking to him about the NBA. I think he was a big Celtics fan from what I remember. Big old Howard Green, picked up on the waiver wire, I believe, middle of the season. He gets that paw on Ben Roethlisberger's hand at the goal line. It flutters. Nick Collins picks it off, returns it for a touchdown. Jared Bush, the much maligned Jared Bush, such a pinata for fans for so long at the nickel and dime position. He picks off Ben Roethlisberger. Right, Charles Woodson goes down. You don't have your Hall of Fame cornerback. These other guys are making plays. Capers is working his magic. I mean, Capers caught a lot of hell at the end too, but man, when he was at his best, he knew how to use all these pieces. What else we have from that game? Oh, the iconic spill it, Pickett, spill it. Clay Matthews telling Ryan Pickett to crash in. They pinch Rashad Mendenhall, jar the ball loose. Desmond Bishop picks it up. Huge turnover. That was the 11th takeaway for the Packers defense in the postseason alone. They got plays on defense, right? Like if you're the Bills, you just somehow need to manufacture these moments, these plays. So what should Brandon Beane do? I'll admit, start of the offseason, like I noted. Part of me thinks, F it, just build an offense. You're not going to get those stops on defense. You got to keep trying. You got to keep trying. You got to keep getting different bodies in there, right? Von Miller breaks down. Go get Joey Bosa. The suspensions, yeah, it's a bad look when you sign Ogunjobi and Hoyt. You sign guys and they're automatically going to be out 6 games. It's about January for the Bills. It's always been about January for the Bills. By then, you hope that they give you something. And then you go TJ Sanders, Deion Walker up front. Beane believes that Walker would have been a first-round pick if he came out a year earlier. So you got those back issues you got to worry about. Back issues for a very large human, not ideal. I think we all have back issues, and we're not large humans, and we're not football players, and we got to see our chiropractor. Thanks, Dr. Mo and Wes Seneca, for keeping my herniated disc in place. I don't know what Walker's going through. It's probably not fun. But in the 4th round, hell, that could be a steal. He could be exactly what you need in the middle of that defense. Love the Terrell Bernard resigning. He's a stud. Christian Benford now paired with Max Harrison, two different corners who can maybe take on two different types of receivers. I mean, Sean McDermott's going to have options. Beane has gift wrapped these gifts to his head coach, and it is Beane who has that final call. He's making these picks. The buck has to stop somewhere, just like it did in Green Bay. Ted Thompson didn't say much, but that's what he always let us know. Like, he's making these decisions. This is Beane's belief, and it didn't take the Eagles slapping around the Chiefs to have this epiphany. He's always believed this way. Cringe if you want when he brings up the Carolina Panthers. He saw it firsthand. 2002, 2015, two very different teams, two very different eras of football. Both had violent defensive lines who could establish a certain tone for their teams. That's what he's trying to build here. And now we'll see. We'll see, because it's what is today? May 21st. If we're being honest with ourselves, we can't say if this was the absolute 100% slam dunk correct decision right now. Got to wait until they face those Chiefs or those Bengals or those Ravens in the playoffs. Everything's on the line. Can the defense deliver? And look, to the defense's credit, it wasn't pretty in Baltimore that divisional round. Bernard did make the big play on Mark Andrews, an athletic forced fumble. Those are the kind of moments they've got to create. They've got to get pressure without blitzing. That's always the goal. Because also, and I mentioned this in the story, some conversations had down in New Orleans ahead of the Super Bowl. Josh Sweat basically saying, look, when everything fell apart for us in 2023 and people get fired and people get released, and that's what we needed. Like he said, the reason that we're sitting right here is because everything fell apart and they were forced to make big time changes, especially on defense the next year with Vic Fangio. It's not really to that extreme with the Bills, but they did make some changes to the coaching staff underneath Sean McDermott, similar to a degree as Philly, and they are finding new starters. Like, things are going to have to change defensively. They don't really have a choice. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. I've mentioned this a few times, but only 3 head coaches in pro football history here have lasted, or maybe it's the Super Bowl era. Hank Stram would have been kind of pre-Super Bowl era too. Have gone 9+ years with a team before winning a Super Bowl, and then eventually won a Super Bowl. After year 9, I should say. Usually, you kind of know early on, and teams make changes. You got Hank Stram, Tom Landry, Bill Cowher. So pressure will be on this regime to get it done, and the best way to get it done with a quarterback who just turned 29 years old today, I think, when you look at history, you look at what Brees, Manning, Rodgers had. You can't expect Josh Allen to be perfect and go scorched earth 3-4 games in a row to win it all. You got to get something out of your defense. This collection of players, it's new, it's fresh, it's different. I think that's the best mode of attack. And also, it's not like they did absolutely nothing on offense. They didn't do the Steelers DK Metcalf kind of move and just pay like crazy for one of these guys. They have big plans for Josh Palmer. I think that Beane and the Bills really believe that Josh Allen takes Joshua Palmer to a different level. He's the deep threat that they were lacking last year. Kudos to the Bills for moving on from the Mac Hollins business. And if you're not from Buffalo, maybe this doesn't really resonate, but he was beloved. The bare feet and the outfits and the cosplaying and all this stuff. I guess people loved it. Mac Hollins is an Instagram darling, a TikTok darling. Like, fans loved him, and he was fun. And Josh Allen loved him. I mean, teammates loved him. But that was a hard decision, right? Like, you don't re-sign him. You let him go to a division rival in New England. But it was smart. You've got to upgrade from that. Just like they're going to need a lot more out of Keon Coleman, a lot more out of Dalton Kincaid. If I was going to push back against myself as I'm reeling off the Colts, Packers, Saints Super Bowl runs, like, those teams obviously had weapons to get some plays on offense. Hell, I mean, Dallas Clark is a chapter in my book. He was unbelievable in that AFC Championship game against the Patriots. So nobody should sit here, and I don't think Beane is either, and saying like, we can get by with a bunch of bums at receiver. Like, you're gonna need Keon Coleman to deliver in year 2. It's time for him to grow up, right? In so many words, the Bills were very nice and very cordial. That's what they told us after the year. If you have an injury, when you come back from that injury, we need you to be you, be a dog, be physical. That's what they knew that Coleman wasn't going to get a lot of separation. Um, you look at next gen stats, right? I think he's second to worst, right down there. Doesn't get a lot of separation. But they knew that. That's why he fell to where he did. You need him to be a bully, to be the player you saw in Seattle, just pushing around Reek Woolen as a blocker, as a receiver. You need that for 17 games in the regular season of the playoffs. You need Dalton Kincaid to bounce back and be that athletic weapon down the field. They hope him being a little stronger helps him work through injuries. So yeah, you're gonna need some plays out of your receivers. Don't take it the wrong way. And the Packers did get some of those in that Super Bowl. Greg Jennings was exceptional. He's a second round pick. Jordy Nelson was a second round pick. James Jones was a second round pick. Ted Thompson wasn't exactly exhausting all sorts of draft capital, first rounders, and a lot of money. That he did draft them a lot, and they worked out. The Bills did draft 2, Coleman, Kincaid. They got to pan out. We'll see. That's what makes it fun. Let us know what you think. Hey, there's more ways to take advantage of an MVP quarterback. Look at Cincinnati. They just spent a lot of money on Jamar Chase, on T. Higgins. What is the total? It's in here. Yes. So whereas the Bills wide receivers account for only 9.67% of the salary cap, that's 18th in the NFL. Cincinnati, after these deals to Chase and Higgins, they're at number 1, obviously, 19.57% of their cap at wide receiver, which 2 players basically. So that leaves them kind of scrambling a little bit for the substance. The substance that is valued by the Bills, the lines. Aaron Kromer deserves a lot more credit than he gets. He is far more than the guy in the headlines for beach chairs once upon a time. I can tell you, players on those Rex Ryan teams, players on this Sean McDermott team who have been around other offensive line coaches swear that Aaron Kromer is the best offensive line coach in football. I think he deserves a hell of a lot more credit than he gets for turning this Bills offense into an offense that's capable of playing downhill. Going back and watching some of these playoff games, that snow globe game against Cincinnati, Isaiah McKenzie was right when he told us that offense was built for a dome, and that they got Cincinnati in a dome, they probably win that game. They were not built for their own conditions, right? They weren't built for their own conditions in Western New York. Beane, Kromer, McDermott, the Bills deserve a lot of credit the 3 years after that for building an outfit that can win that type of game. It's a little dangerous. You don't want to turn the clock back to 1994 and be a run-first operation when you've got Josh Allen, a Hall of Fame quarterback. You don't want to go to that extreme. But last year they struck a balance. So they do have that substance on the line of scrimmage that Cincinnati is kind of scrambling for. They hope Shamar Stewart works out on the edge. They hope Trey Hendrickson shows up to work again. And this time when he shows up, doesn't just chastise his own employer, his own boss, Zach Taylor. That was a sight to behold as we got into here on Substack Live last week. Maybe it works out. Right, I wouldn't put anything past Joe Burrow. They can get to the Super Bowl scoring 40-plus points a game. He is unbelievable. And then you got Miami. Their receivers are eating up 15.37% of the cap. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. And they've been withering in the cold, obviously. They have tried to course correct a little bit. The last 2 drafts, Chris Greer, Mike McDaniel, they've taken nothing but D linemen and O linemen in the first 2 rounds. So we'll see if those guys pan out. They better, because their jobs are probably on the line this year as well. All right, let me know what you think, whether it's in the comments at golongtee.com, on social media, and be sure to check out the story at the site on Brandon Beane, the Bills, and why I'm in. Yeah, I think that this is the best way. Defensive swing at this point of year 9, you got to keep swinging away, hammering away, because you just saw it with the Eagles. You've seen it up close back to those Panthers teams. You've seen it with Super Bowl champs in between. It can work. That's the beauty of nailing the quarterback position. You can kind of take that Cincinnati, Miami route or this route they've taken, let us know. Thank you so much, everyone, for hanging out on Substack Live or listening in the podcast feed. Go along. We love to be your home for long form journalism, and we'd love